Hello, fellow gamers. This is Tim, Samwise7, and I want to talk about an old book uh, that's called Central Casting Heroes of Legend. As you can tell, this thing's pretty beat up. It's by a company I've never heard of before called Task Force Games. And the idea is that this is supposed to help flesh out your character, their background, and it's supposed to be made to be used with any role-playing system. Basically, it says, a detailed standalone system for creating thoroughly individualized, involved, and invigorating backgrounds, personalities, motivations, and skills for both player characters and non-player characters alike. Complete with roleplay hints, gameplay benefits, and guidelines for fitting skills into any role-playing system. And what's neat about this book is that, in kind of like an old school flavor, you can roll randomly to figure out what you have, what background you have. So if you have no idea what kind of background you want, if you're one of those players that likes to make their background up as they go instead of doing it ahead of time, the random rolls kind of idea is kind of neat for this game. And it's kind of cool because you can just make up, whatever you want randomly. But I kind of like to just go through and see what you can look at the different charts that are in here and come up with just ideas just because just from what's written. So although like I said, doing something randomly is kind of interesting. But things like let's see, there's like each page goes through and does different things. It just tells you. Let's see where I can start here. So it's guidelines. NPCs, yeah. Linking events, there's character races and how they can be different. And some of these might not work for every RPG, but there's cultural backgrounds, social status is in here, birth legitimacy, are you a bastard or not? Reasons for illegitimate birth, your family, siblings, the birth order, are you the eldest, the youngest, time of birth, and if that's significant, place of birth, exotic birth locations. And some of these charts will tell you, like, okay, you rolled this, now go to this chart, number whatever, and see what other random things are. Or there's like a color chart. So like, oh, you have a birth defect and a birthmark, and it's a certain color, roll on the color chart. But unusual births, unusual birth circumstances, and some of these things are, I don't know, they're not really PC anymore, some of these things, but, I don't know, they're in there. Do with them what you will. Parents and NPCs, significant events of childhood and adolescence, and again, some of these can get kind of dark, which is, I don't know, I kind of like that. Special events of childhood and adolescence, and there's lots of different things like character has a collection of related things, such as pretty rocks, animal skulls, dolls, sticks, leaves, etc. And that's just 1 out of 20. And there's several pages devoted to that. Significant events of adulthood, things like character saves someone's life, has a religious experience, learns how to use certain rare weapons, and I think this would work with any GM that's willing to kind of bend a little bit. It's like, oh, well, that's not the Dungeons and Dragons I play. You can't be that race combination. But I think other ones would be like, yeah, we'll just wing it. We'll just give you some random stats or whatever to make it work. But a lot of this stuff you don't really like has nothing to do with the mechanics in most RPGs, and you can just add it just adds fluff to your character, which is interesting. Alignment and attitude, apprenticeships. Do you have any the skills that no one ever uses, like blacksmith and things like that, or leather worker. Primitive occupations, nomad occupations, barbarian occupations, civilized occupations. What else we got in here? Different crafts, like I was talking about, merchants and types of merchants. Excuse me. Occupation performance, like how good you are, what your qualities are. Different hobbies you could have. This is my favorite. Tragedies, things that have happened. Like, for instance, wild carnivorous beasts attack. The character receives a severe injury but survives. He is forced to watch while the beast rend, tear, and devour up to 1d4 family members. If no family, then guardians or friends. And then it goes to go to the serious wounds table to see what happened to you. And there's all kinds of detailed things. This book it's pretty chunky. It's a thin book, but for what it does, I think it's actually there's a lot of information here. Something Wonderful, Elven events, Dwarvish events, Halfling events, monster events, any underworld experience that you have. And this is like, kind of like the shady thieves guild type idea. Not necessarily like the caverns and dungeon. Military experience, non-combat duty, special forces, and military rank. Ooh, enslaved! Exclamation point. How long you were a slave, those sorts of things. There's imprisonment, religious experience. There's love. Aww. In the service of ... exotic events, death situations. Things like, let's see here. Premeditated violent murder. Someone wanted the victim dead and took personal violent action to ensure that the death occurred. You or the GM will need to create the situation surrounding the death, including method and motive. So that could be things like how your loved ones died. Okay, here you go. Death of parent or guardian, light side traits, dark side traits. This isn't really Star Wars related, but you get the idea. Exotic personalities and features. There's, deviant sexual disorders, mental afflictions, phobias, all kinds of stuff. And they go into some pretty good detail as far as that stuff. Others, I don't know, just different people, mentors, thieves, nobles. Non-humans, government officials, relatives. You can kind of get the idea that this thing really dissects your background and can give you just all kinds of information. If I'm ever having I don't usually have a hard time coming up with background for my characters, but this definitely, it might take your character in like a cool direction that you would never have thought of on your own. Guardians, criminals, monsters, adventurers, nobles. And this would be a good, basically, helper for a GM that was coming up with a new campaign if you're trying to flesh out some interesting NPCs. Unusual pets, special pet abilities. My wife would love this. She's always saying I should put a 50-foot cat in my games because, I just should. So she'd enjoy that. In fact, on a roll of 3 to 4, or the D20, you get a cat. So she'd be happy with that. Companions, rivals, gifts, and legacies. And this kind of goes back to like, oh, this is the sword that my father gave me. I'm supposed to kill, his ardent rival from years ago. There's deities, which is kind of cool to help flesh out, deities for your campaign setting if you're, don't have any idea what to do with that. Here's the colors, things like, red, blue, green, black, and you have a D20 roll. The birthmarks I was talking about, body locations for different things. So, like, let's say you want to have a birthmark, but you're not really sure where it would be. You roll on that, and it tells you, it's on your freaking collarbone. Curses, blessings, and serious wounds. This is, like I said, with that beast attack, you'd roll on this table. Special titles for nobility, relation to the ruler of the land. Most of them are no relation, but there's some that are princes, grandchild. Excuse me. Psychic abilities, physical afflictions. The physical afflictions is kind of neat. Character has glowing eyes, which allow the character to see in the dark. And, you can add these to, things like humans and so forth. One hand is a scaly claw. Yeah, you're probably going to keep that in your pocket when you're going to pick up the chicks at the bar. Crimes, if you're not sure what crime you committed in the past, or maybe you're innocent of that crime, but they charge you with anyway. Unusual skills, military skills, and then there's a GM special section, which gives you all kinds of tweaks to things. Nice big index, and there's you can photocopy the thing at the back if you want to have a sheet for your background. And there's a big list of, that's kind of bibliography here. It has all kinds of old school games that they used, things like the fantasy role-playing previous history system, which I've never heard of, but there's all kinds of games on there. But yeah, this thing, let's see here, what year did this come out? Don't really know. It should have a copyright on here somewhere, but apparently I can't find it. I'm guessing it, I don't know. It definitely looks like it's like early 80s, I would think, that this thing came out. I really have no idea. But, I don't know. It's central casting, and it's cool.